I'm trying to understand now is, what does it mean if this document offers no protection against the violence of men? I'm sorry, I have no desire to vilify men. I love men. I do. I fucking love you. I am the daughter of a father. The facts are extreme. Now here's one statistic, just one. Since the year 2000, more American women have been killed by their male partners than Americans have died in the war on terror, including 9/11. That is not the number of women who have been killed by men in this country. That is only the number of women who have been killed by the men who supposedly love them. And that is such a staggering figure. You just have to forget it to get through the day. But I think you can't just forget it. Even if you don't know the truth of that, you can still feel it underneath everything. Humming. My mom and my aunt were the ones who reported their stepfather to the police when they were 15 years old. They were born a little further out from the penumbra than my grandma Bee. They were born a little over 20 years after women had the right to vote. When my mom's stepfather found out that he'd been reported, he rounded up his family, got his constitutionally protected gun, and threatened to kill them all. And my grandma Bee, in spite of the fact that she had inherited a pretty logical belief that her life did not matter in the eyes of the law, in spite of that, she took her kids and ran away. The police showed up for my family. It was a small town, they were white, they arrested my mom's stepfather. But because my grandma Bee was too scared to testify against him, my mom and my aunt did that too. He was sentenced to 30 years in prison. He served 2. But the fact that he went to prison at all is probably why I get to be here with you right now telling you all these stories. When I think about how brave my mom and my aunt were as teenage girls, it gives me such respect for them. But it also makes me think about the fact that progress doesn't only work one way. I've learned so much from younger people. You all seem so much braver than I remember being at your age, more compassionate. You certainly have a more sophisticated understanding of gender. Sometimes I feel like you are shining a light backwards into the darkness so I can follow you into the future. I've struggled most of my life to forgive my grandma Bee for not protecting my mom. I don't know if I can forgive her, but it's also confusing because we all loved her so much. My mom loved her, my aunts and uncles loved her, and the grandma Bee who didn't protect her kids is not the grandma Bee that I knew. The grandma Bee that I knew loved us all like crazy. She gave her whole life to her kids, her grandkids, her great-grandkids. She would have thrown her body in front of a truck for me. So, I don't know how to make sense of my 2 grandmas, except while I've been making this, I've realized how many of us are forced to be 2 people in this country. I learned something from a younger person recently, a younger feminist. They taught me about this concept called covert resistance. Covert resistance is the idea that seemingly passive, victim-like behaviors, people-pleasing behaviors, may be the sanest response to living in a violent culture. A culture and a country that's making it very clear every single day it has no interest in protecting you. In the case of my grandma Bee, covert resistance is all the invisible, brave actions a woman takes while living inside a violent relationship she can't leave because she doesn't make as much money as a man. Because the police might not show up when she calls, or if they do show up, depending on the color of her skin, something terrible might happen because she doesn't have any decision-making power over her own body. Covert resistance doesn't fit into the traditional narratives of heroism. It involves a lot of tiny daily actions like a woman feeding her kids, hiding money away from them, making sure they get a good education, helping them graduate at the top of their class. It can also include getting sick, maybe even dying of melancholia. When my grandma B died, my uncle found $30,000 hidden under her mattress with a note that said, "Give $5,000 to each one of my kids." She had been saving for 50 years. And that's a bust. Is that okay? Yeah.
Perfect. So Kelly said she would entertain questions, so
Or we
do
can
you
just,
want to just field those, or
sure.
Yeah.
I just really want it to be casual. And if anybody doesn't want to stay for this part, you can go. I don't want to keep you.
Hi.
Hi, yes, wow.
Yeah, nice lunchtime storytelling, right?
You're an amazing actress. But the last thing you said before you went into the acting, you said this was the hardest thing you've ever acted in?
Yeah.
What were you talking about there?
Yes. Yeah, and I'll just bring this down just to. So the question was, what made this play the hardest thing I've ever done? And I would have to say it's mostly me for 50 pages of dialogue. So I don't know if you know me personally, some of you do, and I'm honored to know you. I have 4 children. I have 2 grandchildren. I have a full-time job, so I was teaching full. And then I was terrified, and maybe it was a post-COVID thing, about memorizing that much text. And I just turned 57 on Monday, so all of these things are aligning to make me scared shitless. And the play itself, it's all over the place. So it starts with my Heidi, her 15-year-old self, doing all of this incredible hard language that's focusing around the Constitution. So I'll just give you an example. I say in the play, and I'm supposed to speak extemporaneously on Amendment 14. But Amendment 14 is, look at me, I'm like, what is Amendment 14? The 14th Amendment, Section 1. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state in which they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges and immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without the due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. And then I go into explaining each one of the clauses. So that alone was terrifying for me, to do that with no text to read off of. And then it devolves into her present self talking about the hard stuff, the really hard stuff. So I had to pivot back and forth, and all of our brains work in some sort of logic and sequence, with a simple beginning, middle, and an end, and it seemed like this play did not have that. So it was terrifying. And then Lauren told you, we performed in many different places like this. I performed in the Elks Lodge in Missoula, Montana, and it was like 85 degrees with 250 people and no lights. So I was much like this. I was performing with everybody's energy, and some people would look at the floor the entire time. Some people would hold their bodies very tightly, and I never knew if that was because maybe the play was striking a chord with them, or maybe in a positive way, or in an empathic way, or I didn't know if they were really struggling with the material that she puts in everybody's faces. And it's interesting in Alabama, and that's the Bible Belt. I don't know if any of you are from the South, but this is anecdotal. You know who the fundamentalist Christians are because they don't have Halloween decorations. So if you have Halloween decorations, you're considered a heathen. And I was like, this is intense, and we're gonna do this play. We had a security guard there every night. No one ever left, but I did have some moans and groans that were seemingly pejorative, that made it tough. I just had to be an actor who had some kind of boundaries that I was like telling the story, because if my focus had gone to that, I think it would have thrown me. Thank you for asking. Yeah.
What other responses did you have from people in addition to the moans, the occasional moans and groans?
So, many wonderful reasons that validated why I did this play. And I always get choked up about it because this play did make me go, I never want to act again. I'm just going to do movies that are simple, and it's just not, I'm not going to do this anymore. But the example that's just burning in my heart right now is there was a trans woman in Huntsville, Alabama, who was part of this Democratic liberal group. They all came to the play, and she was so beautiful, and she is 67, so clearly she was transitioning at a time, and I don't think any time is supportive of people transitioning, and that's the other thing that's so beautiful about this play. But she felt seen after seeing the play, and I just felt such love for her. And she is a champion in her community as a geriatric physician who is just supporting so many people in an environment where that's hard. And there was another woman who just, and this is what's so beautiful about theater, it opens up the door for people to tell their stories, and then this incredible healing can happen in communities. And there was a woman who had spoken about her story of her abuse, and I was just so honored to hear it. And she's probably, a little bit older than I am, but you can only imagine in that specific area of the country, just the stories that are held so sacredly because of the terror of sharing them. So I felt like leaving the play in Huntsville was a really beautiful gift. Even though I'm leaving it for all of you, I feel like you're my family, it's easier. But yeah. Does that answer your question?
Thanks.
Nance.
When you decided to pursue acting as a career, did you anticipate that you would have such a cultural impact that the art form would impact you on current events and the way you think of the world?
No. I think when I started becoming interested in, and actually theater or becoming an actor wasn't even part of my reality, I think I just wanted to be famous. But who doesn't at 18 years old, want to be famous? And that was like, the going thing in the 80s. You want to be famous. But I'm sitting with your question now, and we were talking about me being an end-of-life doula, and an important thing about that work is not just to support someone who's going through a transition process, but also helping them tell the story, their story, that maybe they never got to share. and not only listening to it, but validating it. I mean, that act alone, that, I don't know, it just changes me, so I would think that it would change everybody, and maybe that's what this play is about for me. Even though I'm terrified every time I get up to do it, I feel like the positive outcomes are people are going to think in a different way. People are going to have an experience watching it that they don't feel so alone. And I guess that's probably now what I can say I do this for, that I never would have said when I was like doing all the stuff in New York. Just that would lead me to whatever I dreamt of at that moment. I mean, now it's, I love this community so much that I can't even do it without crying, because I have had just a really fulfilling life here. And if people know me and can say, oh, that was a really powerful thing she did, or God, her kids are really amazing, I think that's what my legacy in this lifetime would be, Yeah. Yes.
So is it just recently you've been traveling all around?
Yes. Honestly, this has been, it's a year. It's like a full year that I've been doing this play, working on it. Yeah.
All around the country?
Yeah. Yeah. And the cool thing is that, most of us know this in the room, you have a network of people that know you across the country. And many of my friends run theaters. So they're like, we need you to come and do it here. We need you to come and do it there. And I have a really strong partnership with the Kennedy Center. So that was an easy one. But it started.
Did you mention the Midwest? Did you go to Idaho?
Chicago.
Chicago.
Yes. Yeah. And all of the money went to this place called the Center on Halstead. And this was another moving moment for us. The Center on Halstead is an LGBTQIA+ facility that houses men who were totally, I don't want to say disabled, but yeah, I'll say disabled by AIDS. And in Chicago at a certain time, anyone who tested HIV positive were not given nursing home care. So this Center on Halstead made like a whole apartment complex for these men, and they came to the play. It was pretty extraordinary. So that was moving to be there and to help support in whatever way we could. Yes.
Has the play spread in popularity, and are other people performing it in other parts of the country?
Yes.
I think that should be the goal.
I think that she would say I have exceeded my goal, because it is the most produced play this year.
Where?
And mostly regional theaters. Somebody said Santa Fe. It's all over.
University of Delaware,
The schools are starting to do it too, which is great. Yeah. This play and Sanctuary City by Martina Mayotte, which is another beautiful play. They're the two, and they're written by women.
What was that name?
Sanctuary City.
Oh, Sanctuary.
By Martina Mayotte. Yes.
When you did the play here, you had a student performer performing with
debate.
you. When you traveled, did you take a student, or did you use somebody in those communities?
We just used somebody from there.
That
And it was
must have
incredible.
been really fun for them.
Yes. And these last two debaters, 14 and 15-year-old in Huntsville, Alabama, kicked my ass. And they gave me such hope for the future. They were thoughtful and just not backing down, and intelligent and eloquent, and also graceful. So, and that's in a space where that's pretty intense, Yeah.
Do you know Heidi Schreck, and
So
has she seen you perform?
no, but her uncle, Tim Bush, maybe you know Tim Bush. He came to the play, and he has followed me doing it. And I just asked him, I said, do you think that you could like introduce us? Because we have mutual friends, and I would just love to say, hey, thanks for this opportunity. And just so you know, I'm here, you're there, maybe we should work on something. And the other connection with her, she was a writer, maybe she acted on Billions. This is the irony, this is why we're all connected. Her friend produces Billions and reached out to me to be a family member of hers end of life doula. So, yeah, unreal.
Callie, something I noticed, it's such an amazing play. When the young 15-year-old is talking about her soft monkey, George, and she loves it to death, and she actually says she murdered it and put it in a coffin, and I just thought, that is so interesting, you know, killed by love. And you're talking about, you know, the statistics and abuse before, and it's just, wow, that's another layer.
That's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that.
And she must have, I mean, you think about every word you put into the play, so she must have put it there on purpose. It's just really interesting.
Yeah, and that's helping me too, because I didn't finish the last part of the play because it's very emotional. And she talks about leaving George II's friend on a plane and just having this absolute emotional breakdown in an airport. So just like the connection of Grandma B, the memory of her, and just all of the generational trauma, I think too, that how it gets projected, how it gets held on to. Mm-hmm.
At the end of the play, there's the debate and the question.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to, can you remind me?
The question is whether or not we should keep or abolish the United States Constitution. I will tell you that we only had 2 votes to abolish it, ever. And the mayor of Missoula stood up. She was the judge. She was also, you know, Becky Lee Dobler, and she did this whole speech, and we were all like, there's your mayor of Missoula, about how, you know, the patchwork quilt, until we have a piece for everybody, we're not done. And we just have to keep looking at the Constitution, which is what Montana does. Every 20 years, they re-examine it. So that's something.
And you know, of course, that Montana is going to be the decider whether or not Democrats or Republicans get the Senate. That's in Montana's hands.
There you go. Well, maybe those people who saw the play, when we did give it to 500 people there, they don't remember. Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed being with you. Thank you.
No other questions?
I'm happy to, yeah. Are we done?
So, thank you, Kelly.
In our next Wednesday will be an evening program. It's a panel discussion about the rural implications for Proposition 2025. And the lineup for the panel is pretty impressive, with professors from both WSU and UI. So I highly recommend you look carefully and make sure your evening next Wednesday is coming back to the 1912 Center, back to
What time?